Hello and welcome back to Continental Club, where we discuss the hottest topics in European football. Joining me today, I've got Michael McCubs and Henry Hill, and we have recovered from our post-Euros malaise. McCubs, are you feeling a little bit better now? We're filming this on a Thursday. You're over Sunday?
I'll never be fully over Sunday. I'll never be fully over it. But yeah, I'm feeling a lot better. The weather's picking up here, so it feels a little bit like a new dawn. So yeah, getting ready for the kind of 3-week build up to the Premier League, which is going to be unbearable, I imagine. But yeah, no, all good, Dukes. How are you?
Yeah, no, all fine, thank you, all fine. And I think we're going live to Henry Hill on a building site right now. Henry, how are you?
So this is genuinely my worst nightmare. It's a never-ending project going next door. So sorry to anyone if you hear some sort of rough language or some dodgy noises coming from
dodgy
the house next door. But yeah, Dougie, I just wanted to ask you because you're a father. I saw as of Instagram yesterday. Congratulations!
Yes.
I saw you having to release a denial video that you're not in fact a dad. I mean, what's going on there?
My poor spelling. I was trying to compliment. Well, no, I wasn't. I was trying to, take the piss out of my own lid, and I was with my sister and her newborn the other last night, and I'd had a couple of pints and my typing wasn't perfect, and I said, already got a better kid than me, meaning to type lid. So I had to do a correction that I don't have a child. But the baby Martha, who is 8 days old, already has significantly more hair than me. So
wow.
Well played, Martha, already one up on your uncle. But guys, let's get into today's show, because we are talking about players your club have to sell this summer. So we did it for the Premier League the other week on Sunday Vibes. It went down pretty well. So instead, we're going to talk about the biggest clubs in Europe, or some of the smaller clubs in Europe in one example, and discuss who they need to sell this summer. And Henry, we're going to kick off with the biggest transfer story of this week, Antoine Griezmann and Saul Niguez potential swap deal. And at Karim Arib suggested that Antoine Griezmann, Barcelona had to get rid of him. What do you make of this whole situation?
Yeah, well, when we spoke about Barcelona's business a few weeks ago, I said I was worried for Antoine Griezmann's future at the club. And sure enough, they've been looking for ways to hitch him out. He's got some serious wages on him. As we were saying off camera, it's so hard to pin down exactly what his wages are at Barcelona. Some are saying 880k euros a week, which just seems astronomical. Others say it's closer to the 300,000 euro per week mark. So yeah, take what you will. The emphasis is it's a lot of money on that he's been banking over the Camp Nou after a frankly massive transfer as well. Apparently, what was it, 120 million euros the deal, and then another 15 million euros payoff to show that they weren't like tapping him up or something like that. That's what I've heard there. So it's a bit of a stinker all round. But yeah, it does look like Griezmann needs to go. And Saul Niguez, who looked like he might be on his way to Liverpool, there were talks that they'd opened up between the two, but it's completely reversed, and they're entering a kind of a swap deal now, which will see sort of the two exchange with Barcelona also maybe getting 15 million euros as part of that transfer as well. I've heard even maybe like Lodi could be involved in the deal, and I've been heard that maybe Saul Niguez, he'll be earning about 6 million euros in net salary if he does go to Barcelona. So in principle, I think Laporte is going to be happy with the work that he's done here in terms of trying to reduce that wage bill, and I think Griezmann will be happy to go back to the club where he scored 133 goals in 257 games between 2014-15 and 18-19. He finishes top scorer at Atleti in all 5 of the seasons he was there. I'll be intrigued to see what kind of standing he has with the fans after moving. Obviously, he made a bit of a fool of himself doing that video where he announced he was staying, then leaving the following year. It simply just hasn't really worked out for him at Barcelona. He did score 20 goals last season, which I thought was quite impressive, and I thought he became quite like an important figure within the side. But he's 30 years old. They've got other players coming in, Depay and Aguero. I think this is a sensible move for him to head back. And Atleti suddenly look like they've got quite a interesting team. He'll be up there up front with Luis Suarez. Then they've got Rodrigo to pull for 35 million euros from Udinese, which is such a sensible signing. I absolutely love that, and I'm sure their business will continue going. I think they won't want to lose Kieran Trippier for the remainder of the window. I think they'll be desperate to hold on to him. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I feel sorry for Griezmann his time at Barcelona. It was never his fault that they paid the amount of money they did for him, and it was never his fault that they paid him the wages that they did. I don't hate this transfer as much as I've seen it being ridiculed on Twitter, if that makes sense, for the kind of the financial aspect and the hit that it's just another, look at what Barcelona have done, what a bunch of fools. I actually think in principle the swap deal works quite well. I think Saul will work well with Busquets and Frenkie de Jong, and also could be a bit... Busquets doesn't have that many years left in his legs, let's face it, as well. So I think actually he could be fitting perfectly there, and I think Griezmann would work really well back at Atleti, at home again, under Diego Simeone, where he'll feel comfortable. So player-wise, I think this is great. In terms of the money and everything, it's just a bit of an eye-rolling situation, isn't it? But that's just my opinion on it all.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I put it on Twitter yesterday. I think it's kind of the best worst-case scenario for Barcelona. Like, they had to get rid of someone. They had to get rid of one of their stars. They'd already signed Aguero and Depay, so it felt like Griezmann, they probably wouldn't have wanted to lose him in an ideal situation, but their finances just dictate that he and probably a couple of other stars, Coutinho, Umtiti, they'll probably all leave as well. Although Umtiti supposedly digging his heels in over not wanting to leave because he's agreed to a contract, and it's not his fault that Barcelona under Bartomeu agreed to pay him so much as well. So this is just the fallout of the Bartomeu reign continuing. But I think Laporta has to be given a bit of credit for getting Griezmann off the wage bill, supposedly saving around 12 million euros in wages by bringing in Saul Niguez. I think Saul Niguez, as you say, with Pedri, Frenkie de Jong, Busquets, they can make a very, very good midfield with that selection. So it's kind of a win-win in my opinion. McCubs, let's move on to another player in Mikhail Damsgaard at the other end of the scale. And this was suggested by @Timo_T because he had a fantastic Euros, and it feels like maybe if Samp were to sell him, like they could make a pretty sizable profit right now.
Yeah, he seems like the kind of guy who will fetch, that kind of Euros premium. And fair play to him. He scored big goals in big games. He put in big performances when needed. Obviously stepped up, to the side when they lost, the talismanic Christian Eriksen and kind of breathed new life into that attack. But yeah, I mean, his club career so far hasn't been particularly spectacular. I know he's only turned 21, but obviously signed for Sampdoria last summer for 6.7 million euros, which is a sizable amount considering he was coming from Denmark, coming from a FC Nordsjælland, where he had a superb season in 2019-20. But yeah, he didn't really kick on in Serie A last time. He made 37 appearances, 35 in the league. Only 18 appearances were starts. However, 2 goals and 4 assists. Not exactly spectacular, is it? But his numbers were pretty decent. 1.3 shots, 1.3 key passes, 2.6 dribbles per 90, 0.28 expected goals and assists per 90. Not amazing. 7th in Sampdoria's squad. That's the kind of numbers you expect from like an attacking fullback, really, isn't it? Rather than a forward. So, and to be fair though, perhaps the system he was playing in Sampdoria, or the system he plays in at Sampdoria, perhaps doesn't cater to his kind of qualities as well as others could, perhaps. And I can't say I'm really, I've watched Sampdoria all that much, but perhaps that is the case. Nevertheless, no one really expected what he was going to do at Euro 2020. Obviously scored 2, got an assist, obviously scored that superb free kick in the semi-final. A highly pressurised game. So he certainly has the mental toughness, I think, to take a step up in his career. But whether someone is willing to pay 40 million euros for him, I think is another matter. To go through his numbers very quickly, the Euros, he was averaging 2.4 shots, 2.4 dribbles. I think we all saw that in his performances, didn't we? He was an absolute nightmare for defences. But again, it's international football, which is completely different from club football. It's an international tournament where, the sample size in terms of numbers is very small, and it is only 6 games. How many games did he even play? 5 games. It's a 5-game streak essentially. In a in circumstances which are so different when you're playing for your country. You obviously, the system is going to be different. You've got a manager who's going to be switching up tactically almost every game, as Denmark did in particular. So going from impressing on that level to then playing a whole league season at a top European club, and he's been linked with big clubs. He's been linked with Real Madrid, Juventus, Liverpool, Roma, Milan. These are big clubs where it's going to be a very different set of circumstances across the course of a season, and obviously he knows that. But I don't know if I see it. I just don't know if I see it in these kind of economic circumstances in terms of the transfer markets at the moment, especially kind of in mainland Europe. Like obviously if you're Sampdoria, I think you snap your hand off if you're going to be getting a 34 million euro profit on a player who hasn't yet exploded at your club.
Yeah.
But I just struggle to see any of those clubs going for him. Real Madrid are, cutting costs this summer. They're not going. I don't think they're going to spend money on any forward who's not, while they save up for Mbappe. Liverpool have been, I think particularly quiet on forward transfers this summer. I feel even last summer they didn't really do anything until that kind of surprise arrival of Diogo Jota. Spurs, obviously, I think that Danny Ings, is that done yet, or that looks to be done. And then like the Italian clubs, I'm just not sure they have the money to spend that much on Damsgaard. So I mean, I could see him leaving for sure, but 40 million just seems a bit much. I feel like 20-25 million is a lot more realistic. So yeah, I don't know. If I was Damsgaard, I'd be in some ways tempted to stay another year at Sampdoria. His profile's higher now. I think he'll probably have a bigger part to play at the club this season as a result. And perhaps he can have a big season and actually get that top 5 league experience that he needs and find that form that would then set her much better for a big move in 2022.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you from Damsgaard's perspective. I just think from Sampdoria's, like, you just have to get this. I mean, if someone offers 40, look at Milot Rashica last summer as well. Everyone was saying, Werder Bremen, they had offers of 35, I think, coming in for him. They refused. Then he had a really poor season. Now he's at Norwich. For the player and for the club, like, they could have made so much more money on him. Damsgaard, like, this is probably the summer to sell him if you're Sampdoria and just continue to invest in that squad. Like, they aren't big spenders at all. I think they made a net profit of 6 million euros last summer. They made, they only spent 6 million euros last summer. They made a net profit the year before. So they're just not, they're not, outlaying huge amounts in the transfer window. So 34 million euro profit in the space of a year for a bit part player, I think you've got to take that. But I kind of agree with you from Damsgaard's perspective. Maybe just one more season establishing yourself in Serie A would be best for his career. Let's move over to Real Madrid, because we led with the show with them last week. But according to Daniel_Root, there are quite a few players that Real Madrid could consider selling. We obviously know that Ancelotti has been told from Perez that they've got to sell before they can buy. And the options for that you guys suggested on the response to my tweet were numerous. People were saying Hazard, Bale, Jovic, Mariano, maybe even Asensio I saw being said. But none of them make nearly as much sense to sell as Isco. So the former Malaga man turned 29 in April, and he'll be looking for a new start, undoubtedly. Whether that's under Ancelotti is another story, to be fair, because he was initially, tapped up, or not tapped up, but, the club initially entered talks with Malaga under Manuel Pellegrini, his former boss there, but he was actually brought in under Ancelotti and became Ancelotti's first signing of his first spell in June 2013. And he was a pretty key player under the Italian. He featured in 66 of Ancelotti's 76 league games in charge of Real Madrid. He also made 12 Champions League appearances, 6 starts as they won La Decima in 13-14. He made 10 the following campaign as they reached the semi-final before losing to Juventus. But recently, obviously, he's become incredibly bit part. I mean, everyone remembers that video of him on the bench saying, I don't really know why Zidane hates me so much. He only made 11 league starts in 2018-19, 15 in 19-20, and just 8 last term. He played 899 league minutes, which was 18th in the squad, 0 goals and 2 assists in the league. Like, just clearly not favoured under Zidane at all. And with Odegaard, Ceballos, Bale returning to the club as well, it looks like it's going to be really difficult for him to get regular game time as well. And he's also in the final year of his contract, so this is the final time that they can sell Isco and get a little bit of money for him. Supposedly, Arsenal and Spurs are monitoring the situation. To be honest, I think there's more attractive options for both clubs. AC Milan and Napoli also want him, apparently. Napoli even tweeted, whether it was an accident or not, a tweet saying Isco, bracket, Google search, before quickly deleting it as well. So it looks like they're definitely looking at him, and I'm sure that social media executive has been fired now. And Marca claimed that AC Milan view him and Coutinho as the ideal replacements for Calhanoglu, but I don't know whether that's a bit of a step back to the old Milan where they bring in these enormous stars on huge wages when they've been so prudent this summer in getting rid of Donnarumma just when he was asking for 12 million euros per year and signing Mike Maignan instead, who's on about 2.5, I believe. So we'll see what happens with Isco, but he certainly is a player that needs to be sold this summer, unless Ancelotti has some crazy plan for him and is going to make him the fulcrum of their side. But at 29, I just can't really see it. Henry, another player that is in a similar situation to Isco, in that now is the time to sell him in terms of getting a fee for him, is actually Kylian Mbappe. And this was suggested by @waiting since 2004, clearly an Arsenal fan. But Mbappe obviously had a difficult Euros campaign, but that contract doesn't seem any closer to being signed.
Yeah, I just think if he wants to achieve all the dreams, I think not enough people have got in his head now that telling him he has to leave PSG. I think he wants to leave PSG. And I think for all the kind of fighting talk from Al Khalifi saying he's not going anywhere, it probably does look like he's going to go. And I don't think the fact that he had a difficult tournament at the Euros, obviously missed that penalty against Switzerland, failed to score. I think that will probably even set him further against PSG. I think he'll be sort of feeling quite weak right now. But it's interesting. Sergio Ramos, who's essentially about to join the club, he said someday you'll have to play for Real Madrid, but I want Mbappe for PSG. So he's admitting there and then that everyone seems to know that this is the pathway that he's going to be taking at some point in time. Fabrizio Romano claims he's yet to provide a final declaration on whether he plans to sign a contract extension or if he prefers a move elsewhere. I just think he's probably going to leave. I mean, the difficult thing for PSG is I don't know who's going to pay the money for him right now. I mean, maybe Liverpool. I mean, maybe there's been rumours that they've been trying to save up for this monster deal, but we all know that Real Madrid can't afford to pay for a player of his calibre. That kind of £150 million is what's being suggested. Remember, he's only got 1 year left on his deal, so it's tricky. I don't think that anyone could buy him this summer, and I think he's set in his mind that he's just going to play for another year at PSG, and then he's going to have, essentially the world is going to be his oyster, and he can choose wherever he wants to go next year. And I think Real Madrid, in that instance, will be able to go for him then. But that's my opinion. Yeah, McCubs,
what do you think on this? Do you think PSG can afford to let him go for free next summer? I mean, obviously they want him to stay beyond the 22 World Cup, which is in Qatar as well. I mean, how bad for their sort of global standing would it be if Mbappe left for free?
That'd be massive, wouldn't it? Obviously, this is a club that has, kind of unlimited funds. I don't know. I know they were cost cutting last year, and actually their transfer business this year has been, wages aside, transfer fees wise at least, has been fairly abstemious, hasn't it? But it'd be huge for them. I don't understand in some ways why they don't just try and tie him down to just like a short-term deal, like a 2-year deal or something. Just give him what he wants for 2 years. He's still young. He could. I feel like that the opportunities for Mbappe right now at PSG outweigh the opportunities for him at Real Madrid. Like, PSG are in a better place to challenge for the Champions League. In terms of league-wise, they're probably going to win the league next year. I don't know. I just think he's got more fun players to play with, I think, at PSG at the moment as well. Obviously, he's not going to have like a Neymar kind of player to play with at Real Madrid. I don't know. I feel like now is the time for him to stay. And I don't understand how PSG aren't in this position, at the position yet where they're just like, let's just sign with us for 1 year or 2 years more, because the value of him staying, even for only that long, even if they know that he's going to go at the end of that, is still way higher than if they were to let him go for free next summer. But I think probably what will happen is that he won't sign a new contract this summer, but they will end up getting over the line at some point this season. I feel like they're going to be. It's going to get to that point, I think, where he will eventually just get everything he wants. I think it's just a very long bargaining game, especially when a club like Real Madrid can't afford him this summer, supposedly. So, that's what I think will happen. potentially it won't.
He's playing a game of who blinks first. I like it from Mbappe. He's just holding on. He holds all the power here, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Except for the fact it looks unlikely, as you say, that Real Madrid will be able to sign him. But I saw some interesting tweets yesterday that if they offload, 4 or 5 players, including Varane, and get close to 50 million euros for him, then maybe it is possible for Perez. I mean, they didn't spend anything last summer either as well. So we shall see. On the topic of PSG, I think we should mention Mauro Icardi, who was suggested by Toby Alderwall for this. Obviously, he started really well at PSG, to be honest. 20 goals in 34 games on loan in 2019-20. They then signed him permanently following his following his move, which could rise to 70 million euros, I think. But it didn't go as well last term. 13 goals in 28 games. Featured sort of sporadically after Poch's arrival, had a few injury issues as well, was injured for most of their run to the Champions League semi-finals, He's been linked with Juventus. If they could get a fee for him, maybe that will happen, but I just think they're already struggling, or they haven't necessarily signed Moise Kean permanently. So keeping Icardi round, he's a useful option to have. He didn't have his best season last year, but I don't think it's the time to change Mauro Icardi necessarily. Henry, what do you make of the suggestion from @Euro expert of Callum Hudson-Odoi that needs to be sold by Chelsea? I mean, it doesn't feel like he naturally fits into a 3-4-3.
No, I agree. I mean, this has been rumbling on so many times. This transfer, will he go, will he stay from Chelsea? 235 league minutes across their final 12 Premier League games. 2 goals and 3 assists and just over 1,000 league minutes. Obviously, he got that pretty serious injury which sort of stopped him in his tracks, didn't he? And he's never really kind of been the same, felt like the same player since for Chelsea. Whether he goes on a 2-year loan, maybe they make him sign a new deal and he goes on a 2-year loan, but I just think he needs to go to a good club. I'd like to see him to go to even like a Sevilla, if that makes sense, and just play good football for 2 years, really establish himself and show what he can do, and then maybe go back to Chelsea. That's what I'd like to see happen. Whether or not it will, I don't know. But I think they'll be very cautious about making the mistake they made with Tomori and rushing into a deal which it makes them look a bit silly in the end, really, doesn't it? Because it looks like AC Milan got a bit of a steal for Tomori. But I'd like to see them give Hudson-Odoi the chance to go and prove his worth elsewhere, because as you say, he doesn't really fit in the system that Chelsea look like they're going to be playing. And if they get another number 9, a new centre forward, and push Werner out to the wings, then there's going to be even less opportunities for him to play next year. So yeah, I agree. A 2-year loan or a 1-year loan, certainly to a sort of decent Champions League football playing club, I'd love to see that happen.
I think that's a good shout, actually, to be honest, because I think he's got quite a few years left on his deal. I think it goes till 2024. He's on 100 grand a week, so they'll expect a healthy fee for him. So maybe a loan is the best option for him this summer. The final option we wanted to mention was Samu Castillejo. Always comes up with all AC Milan fans whenever we tweet. This came in from IamQD. Basically, he hasn't been particularly good since joining from Villarreal in August 2018. AC Milan fans really don't rate him. They want to sort of rebuild that right-hand side as well. 10 goals and 13 assists in 108 games. I don't think he's a terrible player. He's probably not Champions League level, maybe Europa League level. Just 1 goal and 0 assists in 28 Serie A games last year. Not entirely sure where he goes. Maybe back to Spain somewhere. But yeah, AC Milan fans consistently want rid of Samu Castillejo. But guys, we want to hear from you. Who is your signing, or who is the player your club needs to sell this summer? Do you think Griezmann Saul is a good deal? Do you see Kylian Mbappe leaving? Get your thoughts on all these moves in the comments down below, and let's move on to our quickfire question. So as I said, we're moving on to quickfire question. There's obviously no big match preview for the next month on Continental Club, so we'll make sure that we try and answer as many of your questions as possible. The best one this week came in from @Kareem Arib, and it was opinions on the Euros team of the tournament. Any changes? McCubs, why don't you kick off with this? I'm sure there's a Man United player that I would want to include, and I'm sure you want to include in this too.
Potentially. I don't know, actually. So let's go through it very quickly, unless people can't see it on screen. So it's like Donnarumma in goal, Walker, Bonucci, Maguire, Spinazzola at the back, Højbjerg, Jorginho, Pedri, front line, Chiesa, Lukaku, Sterling. It's not actually that dissimilar from the one that me and Henry did for FD, which is go and watch that after this if you'd like. Even that one, we had a few disputes, so we probably don't have exactly the same teams in mind ourselves. But actually, I don't know. I'm assuming you're talking about Luke Shaw, Dukes.
I was actually talking about Paul Pogba.
Oh, Paul Pogba, yeah, of course. I forgot about that, yeah. Paul Pogba, yeah, absolutely Paul Pogba in the midfield. I think on our FD one, we put that midfield, Jorginho, Pedri, but then Pogba instead of Højbjerg. Højbjerg had a superb tournament, but I just think, considering that Paul Pogba was, in my view, far and away the player of the tournament before France went out, including that performance against Switzerland, which was superb. Obviously scored one of the goals of the tournament in that game as well. Just his contribution to the spectacle of the tournament, I think, can't go unnoticed. And you could argue maybe Højbjerg was... Actually, I don't think you could even argue that Højbjerg was more important to Denmark. I think Denmark's defensive solidity was so important to that side, whereas I think France were not particularly defensively solid. Attacking wise, obviously Mbappe was pretty disappointing. Pogba was the player who really stepped up and dragged France through games and was there in the big moments. So I think Pogba has to be in there. Otherwise, I don't hate that back line at all. I think we put Walker and Maguire and Spinazzola in our back line. I think Donnarumma probably is just about deserving of the goalkeeper spot, although I think him getting player of the tournament was a bit mad. I think that's basically on the basis of 2 penalty shootouts, isn't it? And okay, he was great otherwise, but I don't think he was necessarily better than Jan Sommer or like Kasper Schmeichel or even Jordan Pickford on balance in normal play in the tournament. And even Jan Sommer was a hero in a penalty shootout and almost a hero in a second penalty shootout as well. So yeah, I have issues with him taking the player of the year over, say Sterling or like Spinazzola, for example, or Jorginho even, or Bonucci. And then up top, I think I wouldn't change anything up top aside from perhaps Lukaku. Probably put Schick in there instead, just because I think he was a bit more central and obviously scored some really important goals. Although I did think Lukaku had a pretty good tournament as well. But yes, Chiesa and Sterling I think have to be those front two on out wide.
Yeah, I think they're nailed on wing spots. I was going to ask you, Henry, about your opinions on Lukaku. Me and you, well, everyone on FD is a massive fan of Lukaku. But I remember on one Continental Club we were waxing lyrical about him. Do you think he deserved that spot over Patrick Schick, or would you have put in the check?
You know what? It's interesting. So we covered this a little bit on the podcast this week, which you haven't checked out. Go and check it out, the Extra Time podcast. And Chris made a good point that it wasn't really an outstanding tournament for number 9s at the Euros this year. There wasn't really. It was a lot more about the wide men. I suppose you could say Harry Kane, or he did end up on 3-4 goals in the end, but it wasn't a vintage tournament by him by any means. And Ronaldo obviously scored a fair few penalties, although I did think he played quite well for Portugal, certainly in spurts. But to be honest, from the impact, I don't mind Lukaku being there because I feel he really did carry that Belgian side along with Kevin De Bruyne. And I think he was probably the most impressive number 9 across the 90 minutes every time he was playing. I watched the Finland game. Okay, the Finnish defence isn't magnificent, but some of his touches to get out of his feet and score. There was the goal that was given offside marginally, which was another work of beauty by Lukaku. If Belgium had stayed in for one more game, a game longer. Bear in mind, he almost scored, didn't he, against Italy? Just literally the ball just inches away. If they had gone one more game, I think he would have been a dead cert. But yeah, I think Patrick Schick, you can't overlook what he did. The goal that he scored from the halfway line. I even loved that goal against Denmark as well. I thought he had a really impressive tournament. And I'm really pleased for Patrick Schick as well, because he's not had the easiest time ever since he left, I believe it was Sampdoria for Roma. And then obviously he went to Leipzig, where he didn't have much game time. He now looks like a bit more settled at Leverkusen, which is probably the level where he should be settling for now. Yeah, I was really happy for Schick, and I thought he played really well in a very impressive Czech side. Soufal, that's the other one that people say maybe could have gotten over Walker, but I just don't think you can overlook the fact that England got to the final conceding 1 goal from a direct free kick in the entire tournament. I echo the sentiments of McCubs when it comes to Donnarumma. I think great player, but I think he only made 9 saves across the tournament from sort of open play, whereas I think Schmeichel faced 20 shots on goal on target throughout the whole tournament and had the best save percentage of anyone facing shots on target. So I thought he was impressive, but I don't mind Donnarumma being there. And like my final thing is, I'm just so happy for Harry Maguire. I think this whole kind of, I feel as if there's a bit of snobbery towards him, certainly from outside of the UK, and sort of people don't really seem to rate him. I remember Aurelio De Laurentiis, the Napoli president, saying if Maguire's worth 70 million, Koulibaly is worth 150 million. He said something like that, if that makes sense. But I think Maguire's been in the World Cup team of the year. He's now been in the Euros team of the tournament, and also I think he was sort of in the PFA team of the year as well last season. I think Maguire is just an unbelievable centre half, and if we honour Bonucci and Chiellini in the way that we do, rightly do, then I don't know why Maguire doesn't get. I mean, I'm not saying he's reached that kind of deity levels of ability, but I think he's.
Mad.
Yeah. So,
I thought you were about. I thought you were about to say that he's like, like we should be giving him as much praise as we do Bonucci.
No. I was going to stop short of there. Yeah, he is a god. He is a god too. Yeah. No. I just think I'm so happy to see Maguire get the respect, because I respect to Tyrone Mings. I thought he actually played quite well in the games that he did appear and sort of did his country proud, as it were. But I just think Maguire is just a standout leader, and it's great to see him in that squad, along with Sterling too. But yeah, I don't particularly mind this team this season. Lukaku's an interesting one. Team
of the tournament. Yeah, no, it is. I think Pogba's the only notable absentee, but I thought Højbjerg was really impressive, to be fair. I thought Delaney had a very good tournament in that central midfield for Denmark as well. You're right to point out Maguire, like what a turnaround considering the Mykonos incident at the start of the season, getting sent off against Denmark as well in that, was it a qualifying game as well, or maybe a friendly, I can't even remember now. So what a turnaround from him. I actually thought if he hadn't got injured, I think Spinazzola was probably going to win player of the tournament. I kind of go along with you guys. I thought Italy were the best team in the tournament. They're a great side, but probably no outstanding individual in terms of like absolutely rocking a tournament, in terms of like what Antoine Griezmann did for France in Euro 2016 or anyone like that. Other than that, I don't really have too many issues with this team. I probably would have included Chiellini, maybe over Maguire or Bonucci, to be honest, just because of his impact in the latter stages, particularly in that Belgium game. I just thought he was awesome. But yeah, fair play to UEFA. It's not too much of a mess. And great to see Pedri being included as well. By far and away the best young player in this tournament by a distance. So don't have too many issues with this. But guys, get your thoughts about the UEFA team of the tournament in the comments down below. And that's all we've got time for Continental Club for this week. I mean, no big match preview, so it's a little bit of a shorter show. I hope you enjoyed it. McCubs, what should they go and watch now?
We've got a explainer on Barcelona and their kind of current situation and why they're selling so many players. That is coming out this weekend. If you haven't already, go and check out the our team of the season, or team of the tournament, Euros team of the tournament that came out on Tuesday. Go and check out the podcast that Henry was on with Chris and Joe.
Nice. Anything from you, Ori?
Yeah, I think it feels like it's a Barcelona special on Europe or Daily this week, isn't it? Because our transfer talk was looking at that Ilaix Moriba rumour to Manchester United, and actually a scout report which a lot of you have enjoyed so far about. We looked at, what was it, Coutinho, we looked at something like Barcelona, Pjanic, so the rejects, as it were. Yeah, Dembele, the players that maybe they're trying to shift. The players they're trying to shift. And we looked at some of the numbers behind them, because someone like Coutinho, I'd love to see him go to AC Milan. Because I'd love to see him get that kind of resurrection moment. I don't know what you guys think, but there's James Rodriguez, Coutinho. There's a few of them all competing for that Çalhanoğlu sort of vacancy, and I think we gave Coutinho put a light on him as why he should maybe be the man for the job. I'd love to see him get a second chance. But yeah, it's basically a Barcelona week on Eurofootball Daily, so enjoy it if you're a Catalonia fan. Or maybe not enjoy it, because it's not
Yeah, I think it makes for quite grim watching. But yeah, guys, as ever, I mean, lots of people responded to that scout report saying, do this as a series. Make sure you get in the comments or tweet us directly saying what content you want to see us produce. Like, we're always up for video content ideas. Get loads of messages every week saying do a video on this, do a video on that, and it's always very welcome. So we want to create the content that you guys want to watch. Anyway, thank you for watching this episode of Continental Club. We'll catch you next time. Goodbye.